Hi everybody, Britny here with a little midweek update. It isn't time for our official weekly episode, but I didn't want to wait until next week to talk about the latest information that released today regarding the new Dead by Daylight chapter. If you guys have listened to our previous episode that just released yesterday, you'll know that I was talking some about the teasers that were going on the Dead by Daylight Twitter feed and Instagram and all of that. And so finally today, they released the PTB along with the new killer and the new survivor. The killer is called the Trickster, and the survivor's name is Yun-Jin Lee, and it is a K-pop chapter. I will say that I predicted that it wouldn't be a K-pop killer, but rather a K-pop star survivor with maybe like a manager for the killer or a DJ or something, like a deranged fan, but actually they went the opposite route, and the killer is the K-pop star and the survivor is the music producer. So I would like to just overview a little bit of the lore that was released. I found my sources on deadbydaylight.fandom.com, and I went over the lore of both of these characters, and I just kind of wanted to break it down for you guys a little bit, maybe so that you can just listen and hear a little bit of their backstory. So Yun-Jin Lee is a self-interested music producer able to advance her goals during turbulent times. That's her official description. Her lore expands on the history of her parents who struggle with debt, relying on Yoon-Jin to take care of her little sister. When she was 17, the record label called Mighty One Entertainment sought out Yoon-Jin's talent, giving her an unpaid internship as a songwriter. Now with the artist name Magnum Opus, she became the producer of a boy band called No Spin. Looking to spruce up the band a bit, Yoon-Jin found talent in Ji-woon, and after adding him to the band's roster, they became an overnight success. Ji-woon was always a flamboyant person, always wanting more out of life, using every opportunity to perform and dazzle at his parents' restaurant, and his parents' spending on his vocal and dance lessons finally paid off when he was accepted into this boy band by Yoon-Jin. Though the band seemed well on their way to stardom, tragedy struck amidst their popularity, their growing popularity. A fire engulfed the building that the band and Yoon-Jin were staying in. The only two who made it out alive were Yoon-Jin and Ji-woon. Unbeknownst to Mighty One Entertainment, Yoon-Jin worked with Ji-woon to launch a song dedicated to the deceased members of No Spin. With the success of the song came Ji-woon's stage name, the Trickster. The pair gallivanted across the globe on tour, though amidst the stardom, danger followed. Yoon-Jin was overwhelmed by the grisly details of the murders that were coinciding with their tour dates, and she upped security for Ji-woon, the Trickster, worried that it may be a deranged fan on their trail, and worried that Ji-woon might be the next victim. It wasn't until they returned to the studio after their tour that Yoon-Jin began to see the light. The Trickster presented to her a song with sound effects that shocked Yoon-Jin to her core. It was a squeal she recognized from a video of one of the murder victims that she had seen on the news. A squeal so distinct that Yoon-Jin knew it could not be a coincidence. The Trickster couldn't have taken the sound from the video because his track had been recorded before the video ever surfaced. Too afraid to voice her thoughts on the matter, Yoon-Jin kept them to herself, though ultimately Mighty One was forced to part ways with the Trickster, citing the violent nature of his music and the knife tricks he performed at his shows. It was too dangerous, and they thought that it was killing their fan base. Getting back on her feet after the mess of the Trickster, Yoon-Jin was ready to present new music to the executives at the company during a private show. Only her plans were derailed by the deranged Trickster. He slashed and carved the executives, leaving Yoon-Jin to put all of the pieces together about the Trickster's murderous acts as everything fell to black. During the tragic fire, Ji-woon had indeed failed to save his fellow bandmates, though not by accident. With the fans' obsessions spread amongst the 5 members, Ji-woon had seen an opportunity to gain all of the fans' love for himself if his bandmates were no longer in the picture, so he ultimately allowed them to die. This act set him on a treacherous path, murdering people as he toured, leaving each crime scene more spectacular and dramatic than the last. Once he was let go from Mighty One Entertainment, he completely derailed. His plans for revenge led him to the fatal attack on their private showing with Yoon-Jin. Though he took pleasure in ending their lives, he couldn't do the same to Yoon-Jin. And just as his blood-filled performance was ending, a mysterious fog began to overtake him and Yoon-Jin. Neither were ever heard from again. So I'm just going to go into both the new Survivor perks and the Killer's perks. I think that these are really going to add a lot to the game, especially the Killer perks. They're pretty overpowered, so I can't wait to try them on other killers as well. But first, let's dive into the Survivor's perks. The first one is called Fast Track. Whenever another survivor is hooked, you gain 1, 2, or 3 tokens. You consume all tokens after a great skill check on a generator. Each token consumed grants an additional progression bonus of 1% for great skill checks when repairing generators. The second one is called Smash Hit. After stunning the killer with a pallet, break into a sprint at 150% of your normal running speed for a maximum of 3 seconds. This causes the exhausted status effect for 60, 50, or 40 seconds, depending on your perk tier. Smash Hit cannot be used when exhausted. So this is an exhaustive perk. It's a lot like Sprint Burst and Live. So you have to stun the killer, though, in order for it to proc. So it's kind of situational, but if you're really good at getting those pallet stuns, then I say this is going to be a good perk to run. The third Survivor perk is titled Self-Preservation. When another survivor within 12 meters of you is hit with a basic or special attack, self-preservation activates. Your scratch marks are hidden for 6, 8, or 10 seconds, depending on your perk tier. This is going to be a really good perk to use when the killer comes up on you and maybe multiple survivors are repairing a generator, or you're healing somebody and they come up and they hit them. You're going to be able to get away without the killer knowing which direction you went unless they have a sight on you. They won't be able to find you through your scratch marks. So I think that these seem like fairly solid survivor perks, especially self-preservation and Smash Hit. Moving on to the killer's perks, we have the first one titled Starstruck. Your unmatched showmanship dazzles all. Starstruck activates when you are carrying a survivor. Survivors within your terror radius suffer from the exposed status effect for 20, 25, or 30 seconds depending on your perk tier. Starstruck cools down for 90 seconds once a survivor is no longer carried. So this is going to be really good in those situations where you're going against a Survive with Friends team or really good solo players that are body blocking or rushing you when you're trying to carry somebody to a hook. Maybe they are trying to break the hook, sabotage the hook, or just keeping you from hooking in general. They're going to have to think twice before they do that and before rushing in to unhook a survivor just to farm points off of that survivor. The second perk is titled Hex Crowd Control. The entity blocks a window for 10, 12, or 14 seconds after a survivor performs a rest vault through it. The Hex effect persists as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So this is kind of like the Clown's perk called Bamboozled, only you don't have to step over the window yourself. So this is going to be a really good perk to anti-loop. The third perk is titled No Way Out. For each of the survivors you manage to hook, No Way Out gains a token. When the last generator is repaired, the entity blocks both exit gate switches for 8, 9, or 10 seconds, depending on your perk tier, per token in your possession, up to a maximum of 32, 36, or 40 seconds, depending on your perk tier. This is going to really prevent survivors running straight towards exit gates and getting that exit gate open and escaping right away. It's going to buy the killer some time to get those extra hits. Pairing it with a perk like No-Ed is really going to be helpful if you're somebody that runs that perk, and Blood Warden as well. In my opinion, these killer perks are very overpowered, but in a good way. I don't think that they're going to be so game-breaking that the survivors can't counter them, but it's definitely going to cause, I think especially like groups of friends that are playing together, I think it's going to kind of keep them from swarming the killer so much. It's going to make their gameplay maybe a little more difficult, maybe make you think a little bit differently about how you can go about surviving. So I'm excited to see these killer perks in play. It's probably going to get kind of frustrating as a survivor, but eventually there's always a counterplay to every perk that you come across. The Trickster's power is called Showstopper. Start the trial with 60 blades. Press and hold the power button to wind up and enter the throw state. While in the throw state, tap the attack button to throw a single blade, or hold down the attack button to unleash a flurry of blades. Throwing a flurry of blades increases control and throw rate, while decreasing movement speed. You can restock blades at lockers. A survivor's laceration meter increases each time they are hit by a blade. Once the meter is filled, 8 blade hits, they lose a health state, putting them either into the injured or the dying state. A survivor's laceration meter will gradually decrease if they have not been hit by a blade for a short time. Hitting a survivor with a basic attack will partially deplete their laceration meter. The special attack is called Main Event. Each blade hit also fills the event meter. Once full, Main Event can be activated by pressing the ability button. In this mode, the Trickster temporarily unleashes his full potential. Wielding an unlimited number of blades, his throw rate is significantly increased and his movement speed does not slow while in the throw state. Overall, I think this chapter is going to be fun. There is no map associated with this chapter, but the team continues to rework the older maps. There is still a possibility that once the reworks are completed, we might get maps from the latest chapters, though that's yet to be confirmed. We can only hope, because a map revolving around this chapter would be super cool, I think. A dark and spooky concert-like venue would make for a really amazing indoor map. I would love to see something like that, especially with like atmospheric music. It would just be really cool to see something like that, and it would be different and unique. Not that the other maps aren't. There are plenty of unique maps within the Dead by Daylight universe, but I think it would be a cool, fresh setup. The PTB for this chapter is out now for PC players, with an estimated release date of March 23rd for all systems, though that isn't confirmed yet either. Once we do have confirmation of that, I will let you guys know. I will either update you all through our weekly podcast episode, or I will make another one of these short podcasts to keep you in the loop. You can keep up with us over on Twitter and Instagram at DualCastPod. That's DualCastPod. Or feel free to email us at dualcastpod@gmail.com. Until next time, bye!